Legends speak of heroes, mighty warriors whose single strike could reshape nations. Young Sorfor, utterly mesmerized by these tales, dared to dream of joining their ranks. His guardian's words fanned the flames, assuring him he'd become the greatest hero ever known. With unwavering faith, Sorfor swung his wooden sword, convinced effort alone could forge a hero. He held on to that dream with a grip as tight as his hold on his training blade. Then, a dazzling young swordswoman emerged, a natural talent shining brighter than any polished steel. Reality hit Sorfor hard, sending him sprawling in the dirt, defeated once more in a spar. His instructor couldn't help but note the girl's prodigious skill, a stark contrast to Sorfor's toil. The devastating truth was laid bare. Sorfor simply lacked the raw gift, a chasm years of training couldn't cross. Undeterred, Sorfor grit his teeth, vowing to grind his way to heroism, talent or no talent. From humble beginnings, Sorfor honed his blade, becoming his village's finest, then a mercenary, eyes set on a looming war and the legendary hero. His first taste of real battle ended in victory, a grim milestone on his relentless path to heroism. Suddenly, an earth-shattering power ripped through the battlefield, sending warriors scattering like leaves. The hero descended, a figure of immense power, leaving Sorfor to question if sheer effort could ever match such innate talent. Faced with the hero's overwhelming might, Sorfor's sword felt heavy, his dream of heroism shaken to its core. Yet his grip tightened. Surrender was not an option etched into his warrior's spirit. With renewed determination, Sorfor vowed to press on, refusing to let his arduous journey end in despair. 50 years forged him into a legend, the god of war, his life a testament to unyielding combat obsession. Whispers in the guild spoke of his final battles, but Sorfor's gaze remained fixed on finding the hero, his resolve unbroken. A shadowy mage appeared, offering wishes to the god of war, yet Sorfor sensed a dangerous agenda behind the mysterious proposal. The old warrior Sorfor confesses to the mage his regret over a lost dream, now seeking a desperate second shot. The mage reveals the hero's location in the Matari Mountains, a tantalizing offer for Sorfor's renewed ambition. Irene Delford, one of the 6 great heroes, confronts Sorfor, acknowledging his fearsome reputation as the god of war. The god of war stands, a grizzled mercenary whose legend precedes him. Irene probes Sorfor's relentless battlefield existence, questioning his unending obsession with combat. She presses further, wondering what fuels his fight despite his age and apparent lack of innate talent. Sorfor cryptically replies that his reasons for fighting are beyond her comprehension. His unwavering purpose is etched in his memory, a constant reminder of why he wields his blade. With a determined step, Sorfor advances, his journey far from over in his own mind. He lunges with ferocious intensity, roaring internally that he's nowhere near achieving his ultimate dream. Sorfor reels back, blood spraying, as Irene effortlessly dominates the incline. Irene coolly observes, stating that neither his aspirations nor his relentless practice matter. She declares that Sorfor, now grounded, will never overcome genuine power, demanding his attention. Sorfor recalls his youthful despair, realizing firsthand the insurmountable gap between his efforts and a hero's innate might. He lamented that true heroes were on another plane entirely, making his lifelong pursuit feel utterly futile. The old warrior then questioned the shadowy mage, wondering if a fresh start could have ever led him to heroism. Yet even after confessing his deepest regrets, a flicker of his unyielding will remained in Sorfor's aged eyes. Suddenly, Irene's composure shatters, her eyes widening in disbelief at an unforeseen development. A wave of energy emanates from Irene, felling multiple combatants around her in an instant. Surveying the devastation, Irene herself seems to question her own survival after unleashing such power. Sorfor awakens, recalling his fatal clash with Irene, yet somehow, impossibly, he's still conscious. Utter bewilderment clouds his mind as he grapples with this surreal, inexplicable new existence. He recoils, staring at the small, damaged form he now inhabits, a body clearly not his. His once gnarled hands are now smooth and tiny. His voice and hair are disturbingly different. The god of war faces a shocking truth. He's been reborn, inexplicably, as a young girl. Lost in an unfamiliar wasteland, he mourns his former self, clutching at this strange, fragile new frame. This twisted rebirth, Sorfor deduces, must be the shadowy mage's doing, a display of terrifying power. A second chance at life, yes, but Sorfor is aghast at being trapped within a little girl's body. Despair gnaws at him. How can he pursue his dream of heroism in such a diminutive alien form? A new concept emerges, Odo, a vital energy honed through bodily training to unlock greater physical might. Sorfor recalls his old self, whose Odo capacity was pitifully low, a stark contrast to the potential in this new form. He understood the vast Odo difference between himself and a true hero, realizing why they were humanity's last hope. Now pondering this current vessel, an unprecedented endless torrent of Odo now floods his senses, a sensation of overflowing power he's never known. Though this girl's body is physically frail, he pushes himself up, testing its newfound capabilities. He's astounded by the sheer, unbelievable power coursing through him, all thanks to this abundant Odo, as he attempts a swift movement. Sorfor recognizes that mastering this new form will take time, even as he instinctively practices a familiar combat motion. A thrilling realization dawns. With this immense power combined with his lifetime of skills, becoming a hero is finally within reach. He muses that this body, brimming with Odo, can channel his old techniques, wishing he'd possessed such energy before. Remembering his clash with Irene, a great hero, clarifies the profound desire he always had to stand among them. Achieving the pinnacle of strength was once an impossible dream, but now his past life's hard-earned power has seemingly transformed into Odo, changing everything. Sorfor realized his past struggles weren't wasted. This new chance meant surpassing his former limits with dedicated training. He boldly declared his heroic destiny, but first a rumbling stomach demanded immediate attention. Scavenging the battlefield, he spotted some discarded footwear, wisely deciding against traversing barefoot. The found shoes were a surprisingly good fit, a small but satisfying step forward. His immediate plan solidified: raid the nearby camp's supply depot for much-needed provisions. Once fed, he resolved to make his way towards the nearest village, seeking civilization. His solitary trek was cut short as an unseen figure abruptly questioned his presence. A startled soldier, sword drawn, expressed shock at finding a mere child on the desolate field. Sorfor's eyes narrowed, instantly identifying the armed men as Imperial soldiers, a clear sign of trouble. Accused of being an enemy spy, Sorfor quickly adopted a harmless facade, claiming to be a simple peasant girl. The year is 220 by the Imperial calendar, and they're on the western fringes of the Central District, a land where 3 great kingdoms once vied for dominance. The Ganner Empire, backed by the 6 great heroes, stands against an alliance formed by the Raptanon and Vance kingdoms. Sorfor remembers his past life, fighting here as a mercenary, driven to challenge humanity's strongest swordsman. He grimly recalls his demise at a hero's hand, deducing the Empire has since crushed the allied kingdoms. The soldier, attempting to de-escalate, asks for her name. Sorfor, in her new guise, simply states it's Sol with no family name. Sol weaves a sob story about her village being destroyed, forcing her to leave in search of food and work. The soldiers identify her as a refugee, one appearing sympathetic while the other remains wary. Despite lingering doubts, Sol's pitiful act convinces one soldier to help, suggesting they take her to the fort, as things can't worsen. The formidable Fort Barboa looms, now firmly under the Empire's control. Inside, Sol takes in her surroundings, musing that not much time has elapsed since her previous life ended. One soldier reluctantly accepts the task of watching Sol, reminded of the need to make a good impression. While eating, Sol observes that the Empire even has a foster system, a surprising development. She recalls her past life, where she couldn't even approach the strength of a hero, let alone the Empire's strongest blade. With newfound resolve, Sol gulps, convinced she finally has a genuine opportunity. Sol, with a determined glint in her eyes, boldly makes a request to the watching soldiers. At the fort training grounds, Sol, holding a practice sword, has challenged a soldier, Nad, to a sparring match. Nad fumes, declaring he joined the army to fight, not to entertain a child. Sol, with an unnervingly calm smile, prepares to demonstrate this is far from a playground. Nad outlines the simple rules, expecting an easy win, while Sol's oddly mature speech catches him off guard. As Nad prepares to teach her a lesson, Sol readies herself, intending to finish this quickly. With a determined glint, Sol and Nad prepare to clash, the sparring match officially underway. Nad charges, aiming to swiftly put this supposed child in her place, but Sol remains composed. To Nad's utter disbelief, Sol effortlessly parries his aggressive downward strike. A knowing smirk plays on Sol's lips as Nad struggles to comprehend her impossible defense. Nad internally recounts his surprise attack, a head-aimed lunge designed to end it instantly, which she somehow saw. The soldier stands dumbfounded, her swift reaction shattering his expectation of an easy victory, revealing her skill. Sol's confident, almost mocking smile makes Nad suspect she's merely playing with him. Nad, questioning if her initial defense was luck, readies himself for another, more serious attempt. He scoffs at her seemingly terrible stance, seeing an opening, and launches a powerful follow-up attack. Sol counters with a dynamic spinning deflection, leaving Nad visibly frustrated by her superior skill. Sol effortlessly meets Nad's strike, their practice swords clashing with surprising force. A faint, powerful aura emanates from Sol as she stands ready, her small frame belying her immense odo. Nad's eyes widen in disbelief, the reality of her skill finally sinking in. He grudgingly admits her previous parry was no mere chance, realizing he's facing a genuine talent. Frustration etches Nad's face as he clenches his jaw, clearly not expecting this level of resistance. Deciding to escalate, Nad channels his energy, calling upon earth magic to aid him. Sol watches, a flicker of surprise in her eyes, as jagged stones begin to crack through the training ground. The summoned rocks levitate, poised to strike, as Nad prepares to combine magic with his swordsmanship. A confident smirk plays on Nad's lips, thinking he's finally outmaneuvered the mysterious child. But the magic was merely a distraction. Nad swiftly changes tactics, aiming a precise strike at Sol's exposed wrist. Sol observes Nad's surprisingly direct frontal assault, despite his magical feint. A slight smirk reveals Sol's disdain for opponents who rely on such predictable tactics. Nad gasps as Sol delivers a swift, unseen strike to his unguarded midsection. With fluid grace, Sol disarms Nad, his practiced sword clattering away. Sol, ever composed, coolly inquires if Nad has already conceded defeat. Nad stares in disbelief at his empty hand, the shock of his swift loss evident. A single, intense glint in Sol's eye underscores her complete dominance in the spar. Utterly outmatched, Nad pants heavily, forced to admit his defeat. Sol, meanwhile, looks almost gleeful with her practice sword as Nad processes the impossible skill of this little girl. While Nad struggles to comprehend the fight, Sol, with a knowing look, actually compliments his underlying talent. Sol schools Nad, first advising him to curb his bloodlust and gain more experience. She then dissects his tactics, revealing his magical feint was painfully obvious. Sol further critiques his sloppy footwork and his tunnel vision on victory, neglecting the basics. Mid-lecture on training, Sol catches herself, flustered by her old habits resurfacing as Nad looks on, bewildered. A bead of sweat forms as Sol processes her uncharacteristic, almost mentor-like outburst. Nad, still floored, questions her pronouncements given her apparent youth, but Sol stands firm on her knowledge. With an unnerving seriousness, Sol declares she is in fact far older than he. Her wide, innocent eyes create a stark, almost comical contrast to her claim of great age. Nad stares up completely baffled, trying to reconcile the child before him with her ancient pronouncements. Elsewhere, shadowy figures plot, learning the Empire's strongest blade is away, seeing an opportunity to reclaim Fort Barboa. Nad crumbles, utterly defeated, his pride shattered by the child standing victorious. He flashes back to his past, recalling instructors lauding his unmatched skill in every combat discipline. Even at the prestigious academy, Nad consistently achieved top honors, a prodigy among peers. Born into a wealthy merchant family, a comfortable future inheriting the business was his for the taking. Yet, with all his innate talent, Nad's current predicament feels like a cruel joke. 3 days pass and Nad is approached, Sol nearby, the sting of his loss still fresh. As Sol walks by, whispers follow Nad. He's now infamous as the soldier bested by a little girl. Sol's eyes remain unreadable, her expression betraying nothing of her thoughts on Nad's humiliation. Dejected, Nad trails behind Sol, the weight of his defeat and the barracks gossip pressing down on him. Sol suddenly pivots, her sharp movement catching Nad's attention as he looks up, surprised. Sol appears troubled by the situation while Nad stews, his pride still wounded. From above, other soldiers mercilessly taunt Nad, rubbing salt in the wound of his defeat. The jeers continue, focusing on Nad's once spotless reputation now tarnished by losing to a child. Sol, visibly annoyed, sharply tells Nad to stop addressing her so formally and to ignore the hecklers. A wave of guilt washes over Sol as she considers Nad's public humiliation right before Corporal Bardo interrupts her thoughts. Bardo joins Sol on the outer wall, casually commenting on the pleasantness of the high perch. Noticing Sol's somber demeanor, Bardo offers a friendly spar, but she quietly declines. Sol voices her unease, admitting to Bardo that she feels out of place among them. Looking up with an innocent gaze, Sol directly asks Bardo the reason for his consistent kindness. Bardo, with a gentle smile, implies it's only natural to be kind to a child, a revelation that dawns on Sol. Sol probes Bardo, questioning if he'd see her as an equal if her age was different, while he admits she often seems older. Bardo, after a brief pause, playfully flicks Sol's forehead, eliciting a surprised yelp from her. He then chuckles, firmly stating that despite her words, she remains a child in his eyes. Sol appears completely flustered by his response, her hands instinctively going to her head. Bardo changes the subject, inquiring if Nad is still sulking, gesturing towards the dejected soldier. He comments on Nad's inherent stubbornness, suggesting Sol let him work through his issues alone. Sol looks downcast, confessing her remorse for wounding Nad's pride and her desire to amend things. Standing beside her on the ramparts, Bardo advises that pressuring Nad will be counterproductive. He then reveals the fort will soon be transferred to the Six Wings hero group, meaning Sol's departure is imminent. Bardo elaborates that the Six Wings are celebrated heroes of the Gunor Empire, assuming Sol is unfamiliar with them. Bardo explains the Six Wings bear an honored title, their armor adorned with the distinctive wing emblem. He introduces legendary figures, the fierce Sigur, the youthful Commander Grizz, and Irene, humanity's strongest hero. The roster continues with the beautiful Eustea, the undefeated strategist Rebarcion, and the trusted leader Rosbear. Sol, captivated, wonders aloud if she too could join their esteemed ranks one day, as Bardo clarifies their title. With shining eyes and a confident smile, Sol boldly declares her future as a hero. Bardo gently pushes Sol's head, chiding her for her eagerness, reminding her of their immense power. He then speaks of Irene, a former comrade, describing her as a terrifying force concealed by a pleasing appearance. Bardo admits with a heavy heart that even a lifetime of effort wouldn't bridge the gap to Irene's monstrous strength. Sol, ever optimistic, beams and suggests that such a challenge sounds like an inspiring dream for any warrior. Bardo, slightly exasperated, dismisses her remark as naive, then reflexively begins to lecture her on the importance of training. Bardo confides in Sol, admitting he too once idolized heroes in his youth. He wisely cautions her against obsession, reminding her of the long road ahead. Bardo gently pats Sol's head, a comforting gesture as she processes his words. Meanwhile, a brash commander rallies troops for a full-scale assault on Della Fortress, eager for glory. Sol overhears the hasty plan, a sense of unease creeping in as soldiers question the commander's rush. Duty calls, and Sol remains with Bardo's unit, bracing to defend their fort. As troops march out, Sol assesses their strength, while Bardo grimly voices his doubts about the offensive. Despite the tension, Sol can't help but be impressed by the formidable appearance of the departing squad. Peeking over the ramparts, Sol observes Nad's lingering irritation, a stark contrast to Bardo's stoic calm. The sun sets, casting long shadows over the mountains as a lone brazier burns, heralding a tense night. Bardo, ever vigilant, is told his watch has ended, but he seems reluctant to stand down. The relieving guard notes Bardo's uncharacteristic intensity, as Bardo dismisses the idea of rest. Bardo confidently declares Castle Della's fall is imminent, making their current guard duty seem trivial. The guard mentions Sol's unsettling predictions of an ambush, her words carrying an eerie foresight. They agree Sol, for all her peculiarities, adds a spark to their otherwise dull routine of patrols. Bardo abruptly cuts the conversation, his sharp eyes spotting something suspicious in the encroaching darkness. Hooded figures on horseback approach with a supply wagon, claiming to be envoys from Captain Donnell. Bardo, ever cautious, orders the gate opened but demands the lead envoy reveal themselves, a grim premonition settling in. The envoy reveals a battle-hardened face, instantly launching into a tirade against the startled guards. This imposing warrior roars his intent to crush their foes and triumphantly raise the banner of Raptanon. The imposing warrior crashes into the fort, bellowing that they're under attack and doomed. Elsewhere, Sol sits calmly on her cot, the distant chaos barely registering. With a steely gaze, Sol acknowledges that the anticipated conflict has finally started. Panic erupts among the remaining soldiers, realizing their vulnerability with the main force gone. As Sol prepares for battle, a soldier questions her actions, stressing this is no mere drill. Sol, however, grins with unsettling excitement, finding the dire situation exhilarating. The nearby soldier stares, utterly aghast at her fearless, almost eager demeanor. An overhead view reveals the fort's interior descending into a desperate battle. Guards clash fiercely with the invaders, swords ringing in the night. Bardo, battered and breathless, suddenly recalls the identity of their formidable attacker, Bogart Ramholth. Bardo identifies the attacker as Bogart Ramholth, the dreaded hero of the Raptanon kingdom standing over defeated guards. Bogart scoffs at the defenders, unleashing a devastating attack that cuts through their ranks with contemptuous ease. A soldier panics, realizing the enemy hero is targeting the magic room, the source of the fort's vital barrier. Bardo, bruised and desperate, races to figure out which of the fort's 4 magic wells Bogart will strike first. A grim-faced soldier informs Bardo that 2 squads have been annihilated, and the enemy has already breached the eastern magic chamber. A flashback reveals the swift, brutal takedown of the fort's defenders just moments before. Sol, with an unnervingly bright smile, confirms to a stunned soldier that she indeed finds this chaos interesting. Her eyes gleam with resolve as Sol declares this desperate fight is just the beginning of her journey. The soldier is utterly flabbergasted by Sol's bold statement amidst the unfolding disaster. Sol coolly announces her departure into the fray, dismissing the soldier's frantic pleas for her to stay put. Sol ignores the soldier's warning, leaping into the fray and swiftly dispatching an enemy. She carves through more invaders, coolly analyzing their strategy, a focused strike to capture the fort. Sol correctly deduces that such a devastating attack must be orchestrated by an enemy hero. A thrill runs through Sol. She eagerly anticipates facing this hero, knowing they'll target the magic chambers. Determined to test her mettle, Sol sprints towards the nearest magic chamber, ready for the confrontation. She blazes through the chaotic courtyard, a beacon of focused intent amidst the battle. Sol effortlessly evades an enemy strike, her movements fluid and precise as she prepares a counter. After dealing with the guard, Sol notes more Union soldiers have arrived, then spots the imposing figure of Bogart. Bogart Ramholth stands defiantly in a narrow passage, confronted by a squad of Union soldiers. The enemy hero Bogart coldly informs the defenders that this fortress once belonged to his side. The Union soldiers stand firm as Bogart Ramholth stakes his claim to their fortress. Bogart, a lone figure of armored resolve, vows to take back what he believes is rightfully his. He then wades into the Union soldiers, his massive blade clearing a path with brutal efficiency. A fallen soldier laments their fate, while Bogart scoffs at the weakness of the great empire's forces. Suddenly, Sol flies into the frame, sword aimed directly at an astonished Bogart. Bogart stares in disbelief, a young girl with an unnerving smile now his unexpected opponent. He wonders at her presence, but a more pressing realization dawns on the seasoned warrior. The hero is shocked, having detected no killing intent from Sol before her lightning-fast assault. Sol gracefully parries Bogart's swift counter, their blades ringing in the narrow passage. Landing lightly, Sol finally identifies her formidable adversary, while Bogart eyes her with grim recognition. Sol recognizes the imposing warrior as one of the legendary veterans from the Raptanon kingdom. The seasoned warrior, identified by Sol as Captain Telich Garudy, looks surprised by her knowledge. He questions her recognition, but Sol confirms she never forgets an opponent who taught her a valuable lesson. Sol's eyes sparkle with excitement at meeting such a formidable warrior, declaring her intent to duel him despite her original quest for the hero. Garudy internally questions Sol's youth and her status as an imperial soldier, baffled by her unusual demeanor as she stands ready. He grimly notes Sol is covered in fresh blood, realizing she must have fought her way through his centuries. Garudy, sword point lowered, demands Sol state her name again, intending to personally verify her identity. He formally introduces himself as Captain Telich Garudy of Raptanon's army, the last knight, while Sol cryptically refers to her past as a wandering weed. With a confident, almost predatory smile, she reveals her name is Sol, now identifying as a mere foot soldier of the Empire. Garudy is visibly stunned that such a young girl not only knows the forgotten code, but also initiates the rites of single combat. Garudy, intrigued by her resolve, accepts Sol's audacious challenge with a slight knowing smile. Sol, ever impatient for action, declares they lack the luxury of time and must commence their duel at once. The veteran knight grimly concurs, acknowledging his own pressing duties leave no room for lengthy formalities. With a powerful lunge, Garudy initiates the clash, his sword arcing towards the remarkably composed young soldier. Their blades meet with a resounding clang, a dynamic close-up revealing the intense focus in both combatants' eyes. An informational panel briefly defines knights as skilled warriors, masters of swordsmanship and tactics, bound by ancient chivalric traditions. This interlude explains that the knight's once vaunted glory has become a relic, diminished by the rise of the hero. The scene snaps back to the duel, where Telich Garudy, the last knight, fiercely upholds his code against the surprising Sol. Locked in a blade bind, Sol maintains her unsettling smirk while Garudy glares with hardened battle experience. Sparks fly as their swords break apart, Garudy expertly deflecting Sol's strike, both warriors poised for the next exchange. Garudy unleashes a powerful downward strike, testing the young soldier's defenses. The veteran knight recognizes Sol's stance as an ancient, forgotten swordsmanship technique, a look of disbelief crossing his face. Their blades clash once more, the force of Garudy's assault evident as Sol stands her ground. Sol, with an unnerving smirk, coolly informs Garudy she's already deciphered his fighting patterns, exploiting the slightest hesitation. The last knight is visibly shaken by this young girl's terrifyingly sharp perception. They re-engage, a whirlwind of steel as Garudy presses his attack against the surprisingly adept Sol. Their eyes lock in a fierce exchange, Garudy's grim determination met by Sol's unwavering, analytical gaze. Sol retaliates with a sweeping arc of her blade, demonstrating her own offensive capabilities. Garudy, his resolve hardening, internally declares he'll hold nothing back against this extraordinary opponent. Sol, a hint of strain on her face, silently acknowledges the sheer power behind the knight's relentless assault. Sol nimbly vaults over Garudy's low sweep, the knight caught off guard by her aerial maneuver. She lands with poise, internally noting that a defensive posture often leads to careless complacency. Garudy, eyes wide with astonishment, silently concedes that his young opponent is truly exceptional. Wasting no time, Sol blurs forward, pressing her advantage against the momentarily stunned knight. The veteran warrior finds her movements and words utterly unfathomable, questioning how he can possibly overcome such a child. Despite his internal conflict, Garudy is galvanized by Sol's overwhelming fighting spirit, preparing to meet her charge. Garudy projects a menacing aura, creating a lethal perimeter that Sol observes would annihilate even an insect. Undeterred by his fearsome display, Sol confidently continues her advance, certain it won't halt her. As Sol closes in, a piece of her hair ornament, clipped by his aura or a near miss, falls to the ground before Garudy. Sol executes a daring slide, ducking beneath Garudy's desperate wide-arcing sword swing. Garudy's blade whistles harmlessly over Sol's head as she maintains intense focus. Sol fluidly transitions from her slide into a backward somersault, narrowly avoiding his armored boot. She springs up, dashing down the corridor, impressed by Garudy's surprising speed despite his heavy armor. The knight swings wildly, astonished as Sol uses the wall for a nimble rebound, evading his strike once more. Garudy grits his teeth, frustrated by her relentless, unpredictable evasions. Sol, however, beams with delight, clearly reveling in the high stakes of their nightly duel. Garudy rebukes her battlefield commentary, but Sol cheekily blames her excitement as he prepares a powerful ground strike. With incredible agility, Sol leaps high, Garudy's upward thrust shattering the flagstones where she just stood. Their eyes lock mid-maneuver, Sol using the wall as a springboard, while Garudy tracks her every move. Their swords meet again in a fierce clash, both combatants locked in a deadly dance of steel. Their gazes lock, Sol's unnervingly calm against Garudy's bewildered intensity. Garudy, utterly baffled, questions her very existence, while Sol finds his query amusingly imprecise. Sol, poised with her blade, internally ponders the peculiar sensation this duel evokes within her. The knight marvels at her ability to mirror his techniques, wondering if she's learning by observation rather than past encounters. Sol's knowing smile confirms his suspicion. She is indeed a terrifyingly fast learner. Garudy, thoroughly confused, insists he has absolutely no recollection of ever meeting her before. With unwavering confidence, Sol declares she would never deceive the one who taught her so much. Their eyes meet in a silent challenge as Sol prepares a costly but decisive maneuver to shatter his defense. Sol begins her devastating three-count combination, while Garudy desperately tries to anticipate her overwhelming assault. On the final count, Sol's strike connects with incredible force, sending the last knight reeling. Soul narrowly avoids a decisive blow, admitting her current body still feels unfamiliar, as Garudy groans from her previous strike. The last knight staggers backward, his formidable armor cracking under the force of Soul's assault. Garudy, bloodied and beaten, concedes his loss was not due to a mistake, but a sheer disparity in their abilities. His gauntleted hand trembles as the veteran knight contemplates this unexpected, crushing end. Slumped against the corridor wall, Garudy accepts his defeat, believing this to be the final duel of his long life. Their faces are shown in stark contrast, Garudy's grim resignation against Soul's unwavering, intense gaze. A flicker of understanding crosses Garudy's face. He suddenly recognizes something profound in Soul's eyes. The scene shifts to a flashback over a decade prior, where a younger Garudy observes an old warrior with another soldier. His companion mockingly refers to the old warrior as the god of war, wondering aloud when the old man will finally meet his end. The younger soldier then directly asks the aged warrior his reasons for persisting on the battlefield, a question Garudy silently overhears. The younger Garudy presses the old warrior, who cryptically states he has a vital task to complete. The veteran clarifies, his gaze distant, revealing he harbors a profound dream. Back in the present, Saul, standing over the fallen knight, curiously inquires about Garudy's own dream. With a radiant, almost childlike smile, Soul proclaims her ambition to become a hero, just like the legendary strongest of mankind. Her eyes burn with resolve as she vows to relentlessly pursue her dream, the old warrior's spirit seemingly guiding her. Garudy, accepting her words, commends her answer and urges her to continue her pursuit. Saul offers a final, solemn farewell to the last knight, Telich Garudy, acknowledging his end as she prepares to move on. In his final moments, Garudy's thoughts turn to a figure named Bogart, seeking forgiveness. A formidable new adversary in dark armor looms over a defeated beastly warrior, mocking the Imperial Army's futile efforts. Soul, with Garudy and the Beast Man in view, fiercely declares her intent to etch their dreams into reality with her sword. Soul stands amidst the aftermath, catching her breath after the intense confrontation. She admits to pushing her Odo power to its limits, recognizing her opponent's formidable strength. The narrative clarifies that her magic release technique, while devastating, severely drains her life force. Despite her exhaustion, a fierce glint remains in Soul's eyes as she prepares to press on. With a weary sigh, she continues down the corridor, reflecting on the exhilarating, if reckless, nature of their duel. The young warrior leans against a wall, realizing she's about to collapse, but still hoping to encounter the hero. Her vision blurs and strength wanes as she fights to stay conscious, determined to keep moving. From a hidden vantage point, a young man stares in disbelief at the child warrior and the defeated figures around her. Overcome by her exertions, Soul finally slumps to the ground, unconscious. The mysterious observer approaches the fallen girl, noting her youth and the perilousness of her situation. The observer, Nad, internally scoffs at the unconscious girl's reckless presence on such a dangerous battlefield. A memory surfaces, a voice urging a younger Nad to cultivate strength and become a great leader. The encouraging voice in his past had called Nad a capable child, fostering a hopeful smile. Contrasting memories flash. Nate praised as a successor, while Nad was bluntly told he possessed no talent. Nad, feeling a strange sense of inadequacy watching Soul, contemplates moving her to the Northern Magic Chamber for safety. Elsewhere, a battle-worn knight in the Northern Magic Chamber grimly concludes the Eastern Chamber has fallen, as communications ceased. The knight winces, clutching a wound, clearly in considerable pain from a previous engagement. He acknowledges that falling back to the Northern Mage Quarters was strategically sound, though his own injury is deeper than he initially thought. Determined, he rallies, stressing the absolute need to secure their current position as their comrades also fight on. Just as resolve firms, a hulking, menacing new enemy arrives, contemptuously dismissing their efforts, much to the knight's alarm. The wounded knight frantically orders his men to fall back, recognizing the immense threat before them. Their towering new adversary, a warrior of immense build, sneers at the beleaguered soldiers with utter disdain. The colossal foe, unimpressed, sarcastically hopes they'll offer at least a modicum of resistance. With a devastating show of force, the hulking warrior sends soldiers and debris flying in an instant. The formidable attacker charges, effortlessly swatting aside a defending knight like an insect. He contemptuously dismisses the Imperial Army as nothing more than a procession of utter failures. The giant warrior mockingly displays a vanquished knight, finding their entire defense laughable. The lone surviving knight, battered and desperate, questions the whereabouts of the awaited 6 wings. His face contorts with pained realization. He already knew reinforcements were still several days out. The victorious brute scoffs, remarking that easy solutions only exist in dreams, not on this battlefield. The brute, overhearing Soul's dream of heroism, smirks with a knowing, almost mocking expression. He then directly addresses the fallen soul, sarcastically questioning if he is the hero she envisioned. The lone battered knight recalls his childhood admiration for heroes, now grimly contrasting it with the monstrous reality of powerful, merciless foes. He acknowledges his own limitations, realizing true heroism often stems from an innate, almost inhuman talent he lacked. Yet, even with shattered dreams, the knight ignites a desperate, fiery counterattack, refusing to perish without a fight. The colossal warrior stands unfazed amidst the carnage, looking down on the knight's defiant last stand. As flames erupt, the brute scoffs, questioning the utility of what he perceives as a mere beginner's fire spell. The fiery blast engulfs the brute, who seems momentarily taken aback by the unexpected intensity. From the knight's perspective, the explosion sends the massive enemy reeling upwards amidst smoke and debris. The knight reveals his gambit, igniting allied gunpowder, proving that even the outmatched can still deliver a blow. The colossal warrior, barely singed, derides the Empire's explosive gambit as a desperate, underhanded tactic. With a furious scowl, the knight curses his predicament, while his monstrous foe flashes a terrifying, predatory grin. Undeterred, the battered knight lunges forward, sword aimed true for one last defiant strike against the giant. The brute meets the charge with contemptuous ease, vowing to utterly overwhelm his desperate opponent. A devastating blow lands, and the knight is grievously wounded, his final attack brutally cut short. Staggering from the impact, the knight grimly realizes this is the end of his valiant struggle. A poignant memory surfaces. A younger, joyful self brandishing a toy sword under a woman's fond gaze. His weakening hand reaches out, a final thought of returning to a cherished home and loved ones. A young soldier, Nad, cautiously peeks around a corner, his eyes widening in shock at the sight of the fallen Corporal Bardo. Nad stares in disbelief at the corporal's defeated form, struggling to comprehend the brutal scene before him. The brute wonders if the fallen soul is the hero someone mentioned. Nad observes the scene, seemingly surprised by an incoming attack. Nad narrowly avoids a brutal sword swing. Soul's eyes snap open, revealing a fierce determination. Saul swiftly intervenes, deflecting the blow meant for Nad. Nad looks on in astonishment as Soul protects him. The brute expresses annoyance at the unexpected interference. A map reveals the current state of the siege on Fort Balboa. Nad, startled, recognizes Soul. The brute is shocked as Soul effortlessly deflects another attack. The brute sends Soul hurtling through the air with a mighty blow, debris scattering around them. Both Soul and Nad are flung backwards towards the fortress wall by the sheer force of the attack. Nad, recovering on the ground, urgently tells Soul to retreat, insisting he's all right. Soul, however, lands gracefully and calmly identifies her massive opponent as Lord Bogart Rumholt. She boldly introduces herself as Soul, offering to be his next dance partner, much to Bogart's surprise. Soul, with an unwavering gaze, provocatively questions if Bogart fancies himself the hero of Raptanon. Bogart scoffs, unimpressed by what he considers the audacious words of a mere child. He turns dismissively, warning Soul that challenging him is a fatal mistake and a waste of her life. Bogart then faces her with a menacing look, declaring his intent to engage her in combat. Soul internally acknowledges her weakened state, while Bogart recalls his surprise at her sudden intervention to protect Nad. Bogart's hand tightens on his hilt, his mind racing at the sight of this hero. Soul's gaze intensifies, her very blood thrumming with a fierce desire for battle. The colossal warrior advances, eager to discover the full extent of her fighting prowess. He derides her youth and unwavering stare, but Soul's composure remains unshaken. Bogart seems to ponder aloud, questioning who exactly he's facing. A grim smile plays on his lips. Her bold intervention was something he almost foresaw. His eyes widen in sudden recognition. This girl was the one who defeated his captain. Soul explodes into motion, her swift attack leading Bogart to suspect her assassin origins. She strains to deflect his powerful counter, the impact nearly overwhelming her. Realizing the immense power gap, Soul understands a direct assault is futile. Soul, adapting instantly, targets the giant's unarmored throat with deadly precision. Bogart, irritated by her nimble moves, prepares to engulf her in a fiery inferno. She recognizes his chant, Starlight's Majesty, a powerful magic whose incantation signals immense destructive force. The colossal warrior finishes his ominous verses, intending to reduce his opponent to mere ash. Soul watches as the scorching hail of 80 flames erupts, a breathtaking display of Bogart's terrifying talent. Unfazed, she counters with her own concentrated lance of flames, a spear of pure fire. The two blazing attacks collide, unleashing a blinding explosion that rocks the battlefield. Overwhelmed by the searing backlash, Soul's vision blurs as intense pain courses through her. Bogart dismisses her effort as too slow, swatting her aside with a devastating, contemptuous strike. She smashes into the ground, her sword skittering away as her counterattack ends abruptly. Bogart looms over the fallen Soul, confidently declaring she's finally reached her limit. Though battered, Soul internally acknowledges this crushing power as the very wall she sought, her spirit refusing to yield. Her fist clenches the earth. This young warrior's dream is nowhere near its fiery end. Soul's defiant stare visibly irks Bogart. Her will remains stubbornly unbroken against impossible odds. With sudden, desperate agility, she springs from the dirt, not to attack, but to seize an unexpected hold. The giant squints, acknowledging her surprising quickness, yet anticipating another of her clever schemes. Her hand darts out like a viper, snagging a fistful of Bogart's own impressive silver mane. Pulled sharply downwards by his own hair, Bogart ironically sneers about the tactical folly of such lengthy locks in combat. Furious at her audacious move, he viciously smashes Soul back onto the harsh, unforgiving ground. Bogart glares down, his expression a mixture of rage and disbelief that this mere child took down his mighty captain. Bogart internally reflects on a figure he once considered the very sword of their kingdom. He recalls being captivated by the spirit and lifestyle of a particular group of people. A memory surfaces of him and other outcasts vowing to support someone's dream, a vow tinged with his own past regrets. Back in the present, Soul masterfully uses Bogart's momentum against him, sending the giant tumbling. Bogart fumes, realizing Soul cleverly exploited his subtle habit of lifting his heel to throw him off balance. Though impressed by her cunning, Bogart, now standing over the fallen Soul, grimly decides to end their fight. He strikes Soul with immense force, yet a flicker of doubt crosses his mind about the situation. Bogart momentarily wonders at Soul's fierce determination before steeling himself once more. He readies a devastating display, intending to show Soul the true meaning of an overwhelming power difference. Soul, battered but unbowed, braces herself for the colossal warrior's next move, her sword still at the ready. Bogart channels immense dark energy into his blade, preparing to unleash a devastating technique named Verestival. Soul stares in disbelief as Bogart, a malicious grin spreading across his face, vows to overwhelm her with this crushing power.